do the British and the American attacks produce the desired results? In fact, the more we engage the Houthis militarily, the more we turn the Red Sea into a war zone. The Red Sea now is a war zone. How do we expect shipping companies to basically travel through the Red Sea? All it takes is one particular drone by the Houthis, which costs $1,000, to basically make sure that insurance companies and shipping companies feel reluctant and they don't take the risks in the Red Sea.
A top Houthi official has told America and Britain to expect a response every minute following the latest UK-US airstrikes against Houthi military targets in Yemen. Iranian-backed Houthis in the Red Sea have been targeting international shipping for several weeks now. Speaking in the Commons in the last hour, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, said the UK was not seeking confrontation.
And Mr. Speaker, I want to be very clear. We are not seeking a confrontation. We urge the Houthis and those who enable them to stop these illegal and unacceptable attacks. But if necessary, the United Kingdom will not hesitate to respond again in self-defence.
That was the Prime Minister. Earlier today, Foreign Secretary David Cameron said the UK will keep taking action against the Houthis to limit their power to strike.
Since we last took action 10 days ago, there have been over 12 attacks on shipping by the Houthis in the Red Sea. These attacks are illegal, they're unacceptable. And what we've done, again, is send the clearest possible message that we will continue to degrade their ability to carry out these attacks, whilst sending the clearest possible message that we back our words and our warnings with action.
Well, this as Israel suffered its deadliest day since fighting began in Gaza, with 24 IDF soldiers killed. Joining me now is Fawaz Gerges, Professor of Middle Eastern Politics and International Relations at LSE. Fawaz, I hope I pronounced your surname correctly for a start. Do set me right.
Perfectly.
Thank you. Could I ask, first of all, for your thoughts on Rishi Sunak's statement, we're not seeking confrontation?
Well, that's how it's seen from our side. But from the Houthis side, it is all-out war. The Houthis have made it very clear that all American and British ships now are legitimate targets. Well, look, we have the means to degrade and to punish the Houthis, but in fact, our actions might be counterproductive because the Red Sea now is a war zone. The Houthis have already won because most shipping companies now are terrified of going through the Red Sea. The reality is we could do a lot of damage, but the question that we have to ask ourselves, how effective our attacks in bringing about basically de-escalation? They're bringing about the opposite. So I fear that without kind of de-escalation, engaging either the Houthis or accepting a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, the Houthis will continue to attack ships in the Red Sea in the next few days and next few weeks.
It's very interesting you say that the Houthis have already won. It's a very interesting point of view. And Lord Cameron says the UK will continue to attack Houthi targets. But the fact of the matter is, as you say, they seem undeterred, and now we seem to have escalated into a state of war in the Red Sea. What would have been alternative solutions to the action that the UK and US have taken?
Well, look, I understand rationally and from a geostrategic political view that the United States and the United Kingdom had to respond to the Houthis attacks in the Red Sea. But again, the question for me, even from a realist perspective, we're not talking about the moral and the legal aspects of American and British attacks. I'm asking, do the British and the American attacks produce the desired results? In fact, the more we engage the Houthis militarily, the more we turn the Red Sea into a war zone. The Red Sea now is a war zone. How do we expect shipping companies to basically travel through the Red Sea? All it takes is one particular drone by the Houthis, which costs $1,000, to basically make sure that insurance companies and shipping companies feel reluctant and they don't take the risks in the Red Sea. So,
But
so, so, yeah, please.
well, I just wanted to ask, I mean, but how open to negotiation are the Houthis? I mean, I presume that the UK and the US have taken this action because they had no other scope to negotiate with them. And I know that they talk about the precedent being the conflict in Gaza, but there's been severe instability in Yemen for a number of years now, and the Houthis have been fighting, their own war there.
But did they fight? Did they attack the ships in the Red Sea during the last 8 years of war with Saudi Arabia and its coalition? The question for us, I'm just talking really from a realist calculation. I'm
Hmm.
not just really, is that why are the Houthis begun to target shipping in the Red Sea in the past 3 months or so? It's
Hmm.
because of the Gaza war. There are choices. I mean, the choices, well, look, all choices have consequences and costs. The United States and the United Kingdom so far still oppose a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza. The Houthis have made it very clear, and they're not bluffing. The Houthis are very clear about their objective. Their objective is solidarity with the Palestinians in Gaza. Their objective is to end the war in Gaza. The entire world now, almost the entire world, would like a ceasefire in Gaza. I'm not suggesting, I'm not challenging the choices that the United States and the United Kingdom have made. I'm saying that choices are basically ineffective. They're
I
bringing, in
understand,
fact,
but I did wonder, because you're pointing out that those choices have led perhaps to the exact place we didn't want to go. What the alternatives would have
ceasefire in
been? Is it
Gaza.
simply? It's simply
Ceasefire in
ceasefire in
Gaza.
Gaza.
The end of,
Mm.
look, the, the longer the war in Gaza continues, the greater risks that the low intensity conflicts in the region, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Iraqi militia, Syria, the greater the risks that the low intensity conflict will escalate into a wider regional conflict. The Middle
Mm.
East today, truly, I'm not exaggerating, is a tinderbox, is more volatile and unstable than any moment in its modern history. If we are genuine, if we are serious about de escalation, and I'm sure the United Kingdom is, I don't know about the Biden administration, because the United Kingdom now, Britain has moved more and more into a sustainable ceasefire. It's not the same as permanent ceasefire. But the reality is, if we are serious about de escalation, making sure that the low intensity conflict does not really escalate into a wider regional
Mhm.
war, we must really accept a permanent ceasefire in Gaza.
Yes, and in contrast to that sentiment, Benjamin Netanyahu has said that there's going to be no two-state solution. Israel's endured its worst day of losses since October the 7th, with 24 soldiers killed. And you said that the Houthis are very clear about their objectives. Benjamin Netanyahu seems to be very clear about his, which is the absolute annihilation of Hamas. Um, so it feels like, we are very much, to use the cliche, between a rock and a hard place. And with Israel taking that particularly polarized position, what are the negotiating solutions?
You're asking me what Netanyahu wants. I'm not really interested in what Netanyahu wants. Netanyahu wants Netanyahu first and foremost. We know the history of Netanyahu, and I'm not exaggerating. Netanyahu is all about basically salvaging, rescuing his legacy. He knows that once the guns fall silent in Gaza, there will be public reckoning in Israel. And this is the polls show very clearly that a majority of Israelis basically hold him responsible for this strategic miscalculation on the 7th of October. He is really the longer, and I'm really genuine now, the longer the conflict continues, Netanyahu has a vested interest in the continuation of the conflict in Gaza and probably its escalation. And the Americans are pushing very hard, and they have not really convincing Netanyahu either to minimize Palestinian civilian casualties. They've been doing it for quite 2 months now, and yet you have more than 25,000 Palestinians who have been killed. more than 60,000 who have been injured. 70%, 70% of those almost 90,000 injured and killed are children and women. So the question is, what does Britain want? What does the United States want? Does Britain want de-escalation? Does really Britain want the end of this kind of catastrophic humanitarian situation? That's the question for me. Because Netanyahu, I have no trust in his judgment, and even the Israelis, I mean, the polls show that most Israelis don't really trust him to be at the top of the decision-making process today. The reality at the end of the day, I know what Hamas did on the 7th of October was very brutal. Its killing of civilians was unacceptable, insidious. But the reality is, does the killing of 1,139 Israelis on the 7th of October justify the catastrophic humanitarian situation that's unfolding in Gaza? Does it justify all-out regional conflict that basically will bring about, destabilization in the region and also in terms of the world economy and international peace and security? These are the questions that we need to be discussing, not what Netanyahu wants and does not really want.
Well, thank you very much, Fawaz Gerges, for your measured analysis of what is, as you describe it, the most volatile state that the Middle East has been in modern history, which is worrying in itself. That was Fawaz Gerges, Professor of Middle Eastern Politics and International Relations at the LSE.